If your amp sim guitar tones sound thin, harsh, fake, or they just kind of all around suck, it's probably not your amp sim. It's most likely your approach, especially if you're using great amp sims, which I'll get into in just a second. After working with over 700 students and I've tested a lot of different amp sims, I've noticed that if the tone sucks, it's usually one of these 5 things. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go into extreme detail. I'm going to be getting into the frequency responsive microphones and how that actually affects your amp sims. So if you want to stick around to the end for that, you're definitely going to want to. I'm not trying to get more watch time out of you. I'm just trying to let you know that these start basic and then they get more complex and more in the weeds. So just so you know, stick around or don't, I don't care. I'm just here to help you with your guitar tone. Listen to this guitar tone that I'm working with here. Now, reason number 1, most people's guitar tones suck is because of intent. They are not intentional with what they're after. The Fortin Nameless is not the same as a 5150 or a dual rectifier or a Diesel VH4. $4,000 for that head. Jeez, I'm so glad we have amp sims now. Each amp has its own character, its own gain structure, its own mid-range personality, and you need to be intentional with what you're actually going after. So I have every artist that I work with and any of my students that I work with, I have them get very clear on exactly what guitar tone they're after. Is there a guitar tone that's similar to this genre? Do they have something that they've made in the past that they're like really happy with? If you can actually say this tone is what I'm after, and you already have something and you're like, I want something like this, then we can actually be clear. We could be intentional with what we're after, and then we start to know what tools, what guitars we should grab, because grabbing a Telecaster is going to be different than grabbing a Les Paul versus grabbing a Jackson. We need to understand the difference between single coils and humbuckers. We need to understand the difference between a lot of these amps. So we need to be intentional. And if you're not sure, just listen to some of your favorite songs, figure out what tools they're using, and because we live in the amp sim digital age, we're able to grab a lot of these that sound great and get a lot closer to what we're after. And the second reason I see that amp sim guitar tones suck is because of performance. Even the best amp sim can't fix sloppy takes. You need to make sure that you're getting a good performance on the way in. So once again, choosing the right guitars is important, or at the very least understanding the difference between single coil and humbucker pickups and how passive versus active pickups sound. But beyond that, it's the actual performance. You need to be really digging into the strings to make sure that you're getting that transient you're looking for. That can completely shape the guitar tone that you're working with. Listen to this guitar tone that I'm working with here. And you can see that the artist is really hitting these strings hard, really getting a lot of volume out of this and a lot of transients. We even cut these and made sure that there's silence in between here. Instead of just using a gate, we really made sure that things sounded great. He was tight. We time aligned things properly. Not too crazy. We just wanted to make sure that he was pretty much on the grid, and then we cut out any of the silence. That makes a big difference in how this is going to sound and how professional this is going to sound as well. You can shape your performance after you play for sure, but when you play is going to be the most important. So don't think that you can just grab a transient shaper and increase the transients because you didn't pick hard enough. It's going to sound completely different. These are instruments, so make sure that you're performing these instruments in a way that actually sounds good. Now, reason number 3 is the DI sucks. You can actually shape your DI tone before you go into the amp, and I really kind of explained that here. We have different things that we can do by being able to time align things properly. We can even adjust the gain structure by just boosting the gain or cutting the gain. So if we did have some inconsistent performances, we're able to adjust them there. But beyond that, there are other things that you can do because you're working in amp sims that you normally wouldn't be able to do. For example, you can take this, and I'm not using it specifically on this track, but this is something worth paying attention to. You can take a multi-band saturator and you can add some overdrive or some distortion just to the top end of your DI. So take a listen to With It Off. With it on. So you can see it added a lot of brightness to this. For this specific guitar tone, I didn't want that because I want it to be a bit darker. This is a really good trick for things like thal and more aggressive metal. But there's multiple ways that you can shape the tone of the DI going on the way in. But the most important part of all of that is making sure that you have tight consistent performances and you've cleaned up any of the noise on the DI before it goes into the amp. Now, reason number 4 is people are not matching their amp and cabs properly. So now we're actually going into the plugin chain side of things, and I built a free tool that's going to be super helpful for building out these plugin chains. Right here is called the plugin chain generator. You just select your DAW, you select what source it is, for example, electric guitar, and then I say, give me tones like Bad Omens, and it will build a plugin chain for you based off of the stock DAW plugins that you selected and a few other paid options as well. As you're watching this video right now, I am adding a new update to add Neural DSP plugins. So if you're a Neural DSP user, you're going to want to use this as well. It's completely free. Links to this will be down in the description below, or you can just scan this QR code here and you can get it completely for free. So step 4 and 5 kind of go together. Reason number 5 is people don't understand frequency response. So these amp sims are modeling real hardware. So they're modeling the amp, they're modeling the speaker, and they're modeling the microphones as well. And if you notice here, this is the Sennheiser 421. This is the frequency response of that. And it dies off a lot right after 10K. But the Shure SM57 is another extremely popular microphone for miking up cabs, and you can see that things die after 10,000 as well, quite aggressively. In fact, after 6,000, things start to die off. Now, you're probably aware that you can change the mics and the cabs inside of your amp sims, but you need to understand that not all models are equal. In fact, Neural DSP, one of the main reasons why they're so popular is because they've done a great job at actually simulating the cabs or the IRs, which goes even further. This is the frequency spectrum or the frequency response of a Celestion G12M Greenback, which is also another really common speaker that goes inside of a guitar cab. You can see about 70 to 80 hertz is kind of here, and then you can see that there's a real big spike up here right around that harsh 2 to 4K area. Then it starts to die off really quickly, and then by the time it hits 10K, which is right here, it's almost completely gone. So you can see that there's really just not a whole lot of frequencies that's happening in the top end. There are frequencies in the top end, but there's just not as much as there is about everywhere else. And so specifically for this guitar tone that you heard here, I am actually rolling off everything above 6,000 hertz. And I know that sounds insane when you think about it, but really it just fit in the mix really well. And I'm also blending it alongside other synths, and I needed room for the synths. And so because of that, this guitar tone by itself is not nearly as attractive as it would be in the context of the mix. It still sounds great, but there's not a whole bunch of that top end. But by the time I add the synth layers on top of it like this, and I add more synth layers on top of it here, and I add my production guitars, I add some vocal effects in here. There's just so much going on in this mix that it would make it extremely difficult for those guitars to fit if they were taking up the entire frequency spectrum. If you enjoyed this video, you're definitely gonna wanna watch this video here. In this video, I break down exactly why your drum tones don't hit as good as you saw in the ads. Maybe you bought all the best samples and they're still not hitting as hard as you thought, or at least as hard as they were in the ads. Well, there's a reason why. And shocker, you do have the right tools, but there's ways of using them, just like in this video, ways of using them that actually make sense. You can go watch that video here. I'll see you over there. And now, as always, go create.